A very good evening and welcome to this Sunday's edition of News First Weekend, coming to you live from our News First studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudanayaka. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
Sri Lanka Freedom Party celebrates its 66th anniversary. President says no one will be allowed to lay a hand on war heroes. Official term of Presifac ends today. Changing weather prompts landslide warning for 4 districts. North Korea's hydrogen bomb test condemned by both China and Russia.
And now the stories in detail. The 66th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party was marked with much pomp and pageantry at Campbell Park in Borella today. The celebrations got underway under the auspices of the party chairman, President Maithripala Sirisena.
The SLFP faithful, including the Sri Lanka Freedom Bhikkhu Association, members of branch committees, party officials, representatives of electorate councils, electorate and district organisers and organisations affiliated to the SLFP participated in the 66th anniversary celebrations. The theme of the 66th anniversary celebrations was Jana Balaya Hari Atata, which loosely translates to directing the people's power onto the correct path. We say with pride that the president of this country until 2021 will be the president of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, His Excellency President Maithripala Sirisena. As parties, we have fought, died, broken each other's limbs and gone to prison. However, Your Excellency, modern society does not want to end up in prison. Our party now engages in politics based on matters of policy and principle, and it is President Maithripala Sirisena who has brought about this change. Several resolutions were proposed at the anniversary celebrations, including on economic affairs, foreign policy, food production and the environment. I propose that we extend our fullest support to the program to protect and develop our national resources using science under the guidance of His Excellency the President. The SLFP proposes at this convention that the foreign policy of our country, as in the past and the present, should be one of true alignment and should not be loyal to any one global power base. Economic policy and strategy must be determined on the fundamental basis of ensuring a future for our children and promoting national reconciliation and coexistence between communities. At the 66th anniversary of the party, we propose that a competitive and efficient economy which is disciplined and fair and which incorporates the public and private sectors be established. We propose that the SLFP ensures at least 30% youth representation when granting nominations for upcoming local government elections. We propose that laws be drafted to resolve issues with maternity leave, pay overtime allowances and transport allowances without delay, to not allow public institutions to be sold for a steal, to maintain a strong public sector while supporting the private sector, to ensure that loss-making state enterprises are made profitable through public-private partnerships rather than by selling them off, and to double the allowances paid to employees who have been disabled.
I call on the majority of the people with intellect and wisdom to question their conscience on where the country would be today if I was not elected as president. When we were heading into the presidential election in 2015, Europe was already imposing economic sanctions. They had banned imports of fish from our country. They had removed the GSP concession. 2013 and 2014 was a time when the entire world, the entire international community was taking up arms against our motherland. As a result of our failure to bring about the necessary changes after the war, using allegations of human rights violations, which I do not accept, an environment was created globally where we could not raise our heads. The United Nations organization was divided because of us. Sri Lanka was defeated within the United Nations organization. We were defeated across the globe, and following on those defeats, when the international community was looking at us with hatred, when they were ordering us about, I told my friend, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, do not go for an election now. He went for an election with 2 years left in his term because they could not face the growing mountain of foreign debt and because they could not face the international challenges. This is the truth. Now those problems have been passed on to us. When facing these problems, the importance of the UNP SLFP consensual government was evident, not only nationally but also internationally. And so, with both the UNP and SLFP in my hands, I went to the world and said, save my country. Let me govern the country. I cannot accept these uncivilized proposals. We asked for time to protect the independence of our country. We were able to prevent the imposition of economic sanctions, which had become a certainty by then, because we went before the world as a consensual government and asked for time and support to correct the path of the nation. Jagat Jayasuriya's problem is an overseas problem. It is not a domestic problem. I say clearly to you that I will not let anyone in the world lay a hand on any war hero or army commander of this country, including Jagat Jayasuriya. I say to you very clearly that I am not prepared to dance to the tune of foreign NGOs which take money from, are supported by and have close links with the LTTE.
Let's take a quick look at the past, present and future of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party was established on the 2nd of September 1951 under the leadership of SWRD Bandaranaike, uniting the forces of Sangha, Beda, Guru, Govi and Kamkaru. Within a year, the SLFP grew to become the main opposition party under Bandaranaike's leadership. In 1956, the SLFP led a coalition of smaller parties and came into government as the Mahajana Eksat Peramuna, with SWRD Bandaranaike taking the seat of Prime Minister. The unexpected assassination of SWRD Bandaranaike posed a serious challenge to the future of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. However, his widow, Sirimavo Bandaranaike, came forward to take up the mantle and steer the party through the difficult times. The SLFP under Sirimavo Bandaranaike went on to give the world its first woman Prime Minister, winning 2 elections in 1960 and in 1965 and 1970, and becoming the main opposition party in 1977. The SLFP embarked on a journey closely entwined with the people. Facing many challenges in the post-1977 era, the party found a new leader from the Bandaranaike family in the form of Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga. The daughter of SWRD and Sirimavo Bandaranaike, Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, led the SLFP to a comprehensive victory in the presidential election of 1994, laying the foundation for important changes in Sri Lankan politics. In 2005, Mahinda Rajapaksa led the SLFP alliance to victory at the presidential election and dawned an era which saw the end of the 30-year scourge of terrorism. On the 9th of January 2015, the victorious common candidate, President Maithripala Sirisena, took over the reins of the SLFP, ushering in a new era for the party and the country. Born a day after the founding of the SLFP, President Maithripala Sirisena's political philosophy has been closely entwined with the people of the country. A staunch SLFPer from his younger years, President Sirisena also holds the distinction of having served for 13 years as General Secretary of the party before taking on leadership. Elected on a promise to Sri Lanka and to the world to bring forth good governance, President Sirisena is now facing the challenging task of taking both the SLFP and Sri Lanka into the future on a foundation of good governance, a social market economy and a strong welfare state. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party, which has given the country 3 executive presidents and 4 prime ministers, celebrates its 66th anniversary today on the theme Janabalaya Hari Atata.
The term of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into serious allegations of fraud and corruption, or PRESIFAC, concludes today. H.W. Gudatasa, the Commission's Secretary, informed Newsfirst that a request has been made to the President to extend the term by 6 months. He added that the President's decision would be communicated to the Commission within the coming week.
The Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Serious Acts of Fraud and Corruption, or PRESIFAC, was appointed with a mandate to inquire into large-scale acts of fraud and corruption between 2010 and 2015. The five-member commission, comprising entirely of judges, is chaired by Justice Padman Surasena of the Court of Appeal. Commission Secretary H.W. Gunadasa says that while the Commission initially received more than 2,000 complaints, it was decided to investigate 400. Gunadasa added that investigations into 17 cases had been completed and that the reports have been submitted to the President. Several controversial issues were considered by PRESIFAC. Among these, the misuse of state media to publish and broadcast election campaign messages of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. PRESIFAC considered the financial loss caused to the country as a result. Namal Rajapaksa too was summoned before the Commission to testify on this case. PRESIFAC also investigated the loss caused to the state as a result of using employees of the security company Rakna Arakshaka Lanka for the election campaign of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa was questioned by the Commission on several occasions with regard to the investigation into handing over weaponry belonging to Rakna Arakshaka Lanka to avant-garde security services. Statements were recorded from several individuals, including prominent artists, over allegations of fraud and corruption in organising the opening ceremony of the Hambantota port. Former Minister Basil Rajapaksa was questioned by the Commission over the misuse of state-owned helicopters during the presidential election campaign. PRESIFAC is also engaged in an ongoing investigation into a loss to the state of 15.5 billion rupees caused by importing rice in 2014, exceeding the amount approved by Cabinet. While PRESIFAC has completed investigations into 17 serious acts of fraud and corruption that occurred in the country, it is now in the process of drafting a final report. While the term ends today, the Commission Secretary noted that investigations are continuing into two more cases of irregularities at Sri Lankan Airlines and irregularities in district-level projects undertaken by the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. 120 complaints submitted to the Commission have been redirected to the Police Financial Crimes Investigation Division, the Criminal Investigations Department, and the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, or CIABOC, via the Presidential Secretariats. 6 reports on investigations completed by PRESIFAC have been submitted to the Attorney General's Department for further action. Attorney General Jayantha Jayasuriya says the process of filing indictments has commenced. I was removed from the Commission in March 2016. Within a year, for the first time in history, we were investigating a former president. We summoned individuals like the former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Senadipati from Avantgarde, and we conducted investigations successfully. But throughout that time, pressure was exerted on us. During our investigation into Lak Satosa, ministers like Ravi Karunanayaka, Vajirabe Wardana, Hakim and Rishad Badiuddin attempted to influence us. These ministers too should be brought before the law. The government is accountable for these investigations and the safety of the investigating officers. From the Prime Minister downwards, they are all protecting the thieves. They have made deals. Recently, they closed down one anti-corruption agency. 4 days after the 30th of June, when the Anti-Corruption Committee Secretariat's term ended, the Prime Minister submitted a cabinet paper seeking approval. The term of the Presidential Commission, which was appointed to catch thieves, the commission which is at the BMICH, their term is ending now, and it must be extended by the President. If it is not extended, it will die a natural death. 15 complaints that were filed with PRESIFAC have been investigated. The indictments must be filed and it must go to trial now. But the indictments are not being filed. The government received a mandate to catch thieves. The thieves and the government are working together to steal.
Here's another revelation on the irregularity pertaining to the Central Highway.
The loan obtained to build the 32.5-kilometer stretch of the Central Highway from Potuhara to Galagedera amounts to $1 billion. The loan facility was agreed to before the final contract value was established. The loan facility carries an insurance premium of 10.07%. Experts opine that this is excessive as there are minimal risks of non-payment, especially as Sri Lanka is in a mature post-war situation. The insurance premium has been agreed as an advance payment of $107 million. This agreement was signed and approved by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs on the 14th of July. Although this was a commercial loan as opposed to a government-funded aid program, the invited companies were only of Japanese origin. The disqualified bidder, Fujita Corporation, is now being promoted to form a consortium with the winning bidder, Taisei Corporation. The project committee categorically rejected attempts to change the stated experience records of bidders, saying it would impinge on transparency and would attract criticism.
We are now joined by Ashoka Tally for more details of this irregularity. Faraz?
Thank you. Good evening, Garunuti. Thank you very much. Several questions remain as to on this Central Expressway project and its possible award to Taisei Corporation and now a disqualified bidder in the form of Fujita. First of all, we need to bear in mind that under the previous government, this section of the highway was earmarked for work to be done by the Chinese. When the government changed, there was a perception and an impression created that the Chinese were far more expensive and that this section of the highway would be entrusted as a JICA or a Japanese government aid project. Inexplicably, we now find that this loan has now moved from JICA to the Mitsubishi Tokyo Bank. And so the question is, how did that happen? Who made the initial inquiry from the Mitsubishi Tokyo Bank? Secondly, we need to know how it is that in June 2016, the Cabinet of Ministers decided on asking for a loan of $1 billion US. And that was for Section 3 of the highway and also the Kelani to Rajagiriya road. How did they know 1 year before the contract was awarded? It is only in July 2017, a year later, that the exact value of the Taisei Corporation bid at 134.9 million or just under 135 billion became known. So it's rather a coincidence that the cabinet seemed to know more or less the cost of the project. The third point is we'd like to know how it is that in a peacetime scenario, the insurance component of this $1 billion loan facility is set at 10.07%. And in terms of money, that's an awful lot. That's a $107 million, an upfront payment. So we need to know how that happened. And then how, and very crucially, how is it that a minister, what kind of mandate does Lakshman Kiriella, the minister in charge of the highways, how does he have a remit? And how does he put forward a cabinet paper to make the successful bidder, in this case Taisei Corporation, to work with the disqualified bidder, Fujita Corporation? And it's absolutely never heard of in the history of this country that you get a failed bidder being asked to work with a qualified bidder, all on the basis of a consultant, supposedly a consultant to the Cabinet of Ministers in Japan, who writes a letter saying that Fujita have a right and the right kind of expertise to carry out this job. That is the question. So many questions. How, and how?
Thank you, Faraz, for joining us this evening. Moving on to other local stories. Speaking at a convention in Madhara, JVP leader MP Anukumar Dissanayake revealed the cause for the massive debt amount in Sri Lanka.
Ranil Wickremesinghe said in Parliament that he isn't sure of how much Sri Lanka's debt amount is at the moment, that it could be close to 5,000 billion. In 1985, our debt amount was 130 billion. Today, it is 5,000 billion. You can find this debt amount in Sajin Vasa's bank accounts. This was the money Sajin used to purchase helicopters and started up companies in Singapore. This was the money Basil Rajapaksa used to purchase lands in Brownsville, lands in the United States, purchased an 18-acre large coconut plantation and built a mansion. This is the money Ravi Karunanayake used to purchase houses. Namal Rajapaksa used his money to buy over Halo Corp. Namal's money was deposited in the bank accounts of Nimal Pereira through this debt amount, 60 million to be exact. Gamini Senarath constructed houses for themselves in Hakmana with this debt amount. Premasiri, the chairman of the Road Development Authority, all of them improve their lifestyles with this money. Kiriala depends on this money. This debt amount is all what the rulers of this country stole. So the citizens of this country do not have to take responsibility for this. Some shout because they are afraid they will be caught. They are not shouting for the thieves to be caught. They are shouting against thievery because they fear they will be caught. This is what happened to Ravi Karunanayake too. He organized a shoot in advance. Before his theft was caught, he spent 160 million to receive an award as Asia's best finance minister. He was chosen as the best finance minister by a magazine, and they paid the magazine $1 million for it. There is another son as well. One son was the president, one was the defense secretary, one was the economic development minister, and the other was the speaker. There is one more son in America. 91.4 million rupees of state funds were stolen to build the tomb for the mother and father. Shouldn't this theft be investigated? Look at how Shiranti Rajapaksa's ID card was made. Usually the first two numbers are the year of birth and the next three are the date of birth. If the birth date is January 10th, then for a woman it will be 510 and for a man it will be 010. But for Madam Shiranti, the ID number was 9 twos, followed by the male numbers. When the First Lady goes to the bank to open an account, they ask whose name it will be in. They say Shiranti Rajapaksa. The bank manager looks at the ID card and wonders how a woman can have a man's ID number. Is he to go and ask Mr. Rajapaksa what is going on? Was all of this just a coincidence? There is a purpose for all of this.
The foundation stone was laid today for the 112th model village being constructed in the Hambantota district under the Samata 7 Grama Shakti housing program. The event was held under the auspices of Minister of Housing and Construction Sajid Premdasa.
The village is being constructed in the Uddakandar area in Tissamaharama at the cost of 16 million rupees. Minister Sajid Premdasa distributed deeds to 32 housing beneficiaries at the event. The rulers back in the day issued orders to judges and completely destroyed the independence of the judiciary. Judges weren't given the opportunity to independently examine cases. Judges were made as their own puppets. They ruled like they were lords, but today they are compelled to appear before courts like little mice. This is a good lesson to the current government as well, that this thing called power is not everlasting. We must always work for the betterment of the people who gave us that power, not for our own sake.
The National Building Research Organisation has issued landslide warnings for the Kegalle, Kalutara and Ratnapura districts following the onset of rainy weather conditions across the island.
The Disaster Management Centre said 3 districts experienced showers exceeding 75 millimetres. Rainfall of 100 millimetres was experienced in the Galle district. The National Building Research Organisation or NBRO said if the rainfall continues, locals in Ratnapura, Kegalle and Kalutara districts should be vigilant on the risk of landslides, slope failures, rock falls and ground subsidence.
Showers can be expected in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and southern provinces at any time. Other areas will experience showers after 2 p.m. Rainfall of 75 to 100 millimeters can be expected specifically in the central, Sabaragamuwa, southern and north central provinces.
The water levels of the Kalani and Kalu River have risen. A spill gate of the Kukuleganga Reservoir and 4 spill gates of the Lakshmana Reservoir were opened today. Although several localities in the Nuwara district experienced showers of 35 millimeters, the district as a whole only experienced a total rainfall of 10 millimeters. Meanwhile, the victims of the prolonged drought are still waiting for rain. Although the north, north central and northwestern provinces received rain, showers have been insignificant in the face of the severe drought.
A herd of elephants has gone on a rampage in the Gulupathwara settlement in Oyamadu, Anuradhapura, laying waste to valuable crops.
Our reporter says that over the past several months, wild elephants have torn down more than 300 coconut palms in the Gulupathwara area. Our camera captured evidence of the destruction wrought over the past 3 days when a herd of elephants went on a rampage, destroying about 80 coconut palms in a 1.5 acre plot. Area residents have hammered nails into coconut shells and placed them on the trees as a preventive measure. The herd, originating from the Vilpatha Reserve, has also laid waste to pipelines carrying water for agricultural purposes. The community is calling on authorities to erect an electric fence covering settlements including Oya Madua, Alivangua and Gulupattawava. Residents say they will be forced to abandon their farmlands and homes if the problem is not resolved. We settled here 18 years ago and have relied on agriculture for our livelihoods. After the crops wilted away and the rest were destroyed, we went to the district secretary and the police. They made inquiries and said that compensation would be paid, but we haven't received anything as yet.
I call on the majority of the people with intellect and wisdom to question their conscience on where the country would be today if I was not elected as president. As a result of our failure to bring about the necessary changes after the war, using allegations of human rights violations, which I do not accept, an environment was created globally where we could not raise our heads. Now those problems have been passed on to us. When facing these problems, the importance of the UNP SLFP consensual government was evident, not only nationally but also internationally. And so, with both the UNP and SLFP in my hands, I went to the world and said, "Save my country. Let me govern the country. I cannot accept these uncivilized proposals." We asked for time to protect the independence of our country. We were able to prevent the imposition of economic sanctions, which had become a certainty by then, because we went before the world as a consensual government and asked for time and support to correct the path of the nation.